Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. April 10th, 2024, 15 days from the NFL draft, 4 days from Luke's birthday. So hopefully he did the big 22 on Sunday. But as I said, draft is 15 days away. So we'll be doing a mock draft for you guys today, our first full round NFL mock draft. Luke, how are you today? I know you said you were pretty busy, schoolwork and other stuff you're doing.
Doing pretty good. Got some stuff done this morning. A few days away from 22. Excited. Final month college. Just rolling on, da brother.
Yep. So as I said, we'll be doing our second version of our NFL mock drafts. Luke, before I start, do you have anything you want to add, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go in. I made one of the things I did this morning was my mock draft, and it's probably the most time I've spent on the first round of a mock draft. And it's a doozy. That's all I'll say. It's a doozy.
Okay. I wonder if you have a lot of trades. I try to think of some trades, but it's just kind of tough to think of stuff. But we'll get started with our second mock draft, and I think we both agree on the first pick. So I don't think we have to go too much in depth of our first pick. I'm guessing we both have Caleb Williams. I'm pretty obvious.
Yeah. It's obvious. We all know it. He's insane prospect. Pretty simple.
All right. I'll let you start off with the second pick and who you have going second overall.
Now, this is a pick. I do this on what I think will happen, but this is also what I think should happen. Everyone's talking about Washington, second pick, Jane Daniels. I still think it's Drake May. He can make like every throw. He's getting like ridiculed insanely right now. Who was it? Was it McShay? I don't know. I don't think it was McShay.
No, it's what's his name? He was on ESPN years ago.
I know
exactly what you're talking about. But the guy who has ridiculed May has basically doesn't like any quarterback in this draft. I'm trying to think of his name real quick.
Yeah, I think he said that Chicago should keep Fields and blanking. But
I'll look it up here real quick.
It's kind of ridiculous that he can make any throw. He played on a not so talented North Carolina team this year.
Merrill Hodge. Is that who you're talking
Merrill
about?
Hodge. Yeah, that was nuts. I mean, but 2 years prior, he was insane. He had some good stuff. I mean, he only had Walker for like 9 games this year, bad O-line, but he's athletic, can make any throw. I think he should be the second pick, and I think Washington's going to take him. I feel pretty confident about that. Solidly confident.
Now, I don't know if you're solidly confident because you have a bet with that in it, so you're more faithful.
Overall, I mean, maybe that's slightly, but I still just like I just don't see him not being second pick. He was talking about Williams and May, and now it's like May or yeah.
I agree with you that Drake May is a better prospect, but I do believe that Commanders are going to ultimately pick Jane Daniels. I think Cliff Kingsbury's offense, spread offense, I think Daniels, they believe, fits better in that scheme. So I do think Washington, and I've heard like Adam Schefter was on a podcast yesterday saying everything he's heard is leaning towards Daniels. And of course, there's always smoke screens, and teams aren't going to be fully transparent. But I do think that Washington ends up taking Jane Daniels over Drake May and the rest of these quarterbacks.
Here's what I'll say. If you look at the betting odds, it's Daniels is favored, but it's not like massively. Like he's minus 150-ish and May is plus 150-ish depending on the sports book. If it were flipped with the rumors and everyone was saying May was like this confidently second pick, he'd be like minus 400 for it. And I think that's kind of telling that the sports books have to follow the rumors, but I think they're kind of just like,
is Drake May also a negative odds, or is he like slightly?
No, he's plus odds, but it's like plus 150.
Okay, so yeah. To be honest, like, could Jane Daniels be a 1-year wonder? Because he didn't really.
I like Jane Daniels.
I think he's solid too, but slight frame. He didn't really
great receivers.
Great receiver. That's the thing. Like, he had a great system around him, great skill position players. So it'll be interesting. But I think in that Cliff Kingsbury offense, I think that's the way they're going to go with Jane Daniels. I'll kick things off with the third pick. The Patriots here, and I have them staying at this pick, and I have them taking Drake May. I think it's pretty obvious best quarterback remain on the board in the AFC, where you need quarterbacks to be successful and to compete. You're in division with Josh Allen. And Drake May, I think, he's a prototypical quarterback. I think he's 6'4", 225, 230. I mean, he's the type of quarterback that you want. He can move, really good arm. People question his accuracy and all that, but I think it's similar to Jordan Love, where the year prior he had NFL talent around him, and then he loses some of that talent around him, and the players around him are kind of depleted, and you kind of saw him take a step back, which was something that Jordan Love did in his final year in college before he entered the draft. So I'm not too worried about Drake May, and I think this was a spot I was considering a trade because Patriots, I think they have a lot of holes on their roster, and putting a quarterback in that type of situation, there's going to be bumps and bruises, I think, pretty early on because I don't believe in the skill position players that they have around him, but we'll see. I think this is the best move for the Patriots, though.
Okay, you mentioned a trade, and I had May 2nd. I have the Patriots trading back from the 3rd pick with Williams and May gone to Minnesota. I even wrote out the trade. I have the Vikings trading the 11th, 23rd pick.
2025 first?
What?
2025 first?
I have a 2025 second. I think
you're going to have to give up a first.
The Patriots never take up a whole, but you're giving up a first this year. And you're moving back just 8 spots. You're not moving. So I have it like that. Could it be more? Possibly. Could that be a first? I just have it as a second. But I have that for the 3rd pick. So I have Minnesota up at the 3rd pick. And I have them taking Jaden Daniels, who I like. Minnesota is a great spot for a quarterback. Honestly, if whatever quarterback ends up in Minnesota, maybe has the second best chance of being good in the league outside of Caleb Williams, or the best chance outside of Caleb Williams. I mean, you have Jefferson, Hockenson, Addison. They got Aaron Jones, who's he's great for especially a young quarterback. You have some good pieces on the O-line, a great head coach, a defense of Brian Flores, great defensive coordinator who they signed stuff. I think it's a great spot. And so I think they're going to go Jane Daniels, add some athleticism, some running. He can hit the deep ball, which is great for Addison and Jefferson. And I have them. I think Minnesota probably prefers May, but I don't think he'll be there. But I have Minnesota trading up 3 to New England.
In this scenario, would Daniels be the week 1 starter, or do you still think that Darnold?
I don't know. There'll
definitely be a quarterback competition. I can see it going either way.
Yeah, it could go either way. That's like 50-50 for week 1, but like by week 10, I'd expect it to be Daniels.
Let's move to pick 4, and you get us started at pick 4.
So I have Arizona, and I was thinking about this. Are they going to trade the pick? But I know they've done some trade maneuvering. I don't know if you've watched the video of their GM from last year when they traded back and then traded up. But he's a smooth operator, getting stuff done. But I have him staying and just taking Marvin Harrison. Best receiver prospect since Calvin Johnson. He do everything. He's a stud in college. Even with poor quarterback play, he's still great. Huge games. He came up big. I think it's kind of simple, Marvin.
Yeah, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. And if they didn't have a second first-round pick, I would think more about them trading back here. But they already have another first-round pick. So it makes all sense in the world to get the best receiver prospect, give Kyler Murray another weapon. I mean, Trey McBride was heavily leaned on last season, especially when Marquise Brown went down, and you need a receiver there. So I think it's a pretty, no-brainer decision for the Cardinals to take Marvin Harrison Jr. here.
Mm-hmm.
5th pick, and this is my first trade of the mock draft, and it's pretty chalk because a lot of people actually have this, how it's going down. But I have the Vikings trading up with the Chargers, giving up the 11th, 23rd, and 2025 first for the 5th pick, and grabbing J.J. McCarthy. We all know how I feel about J.J. McCarthy. I'm not huge on him, but, based on reports, it seems like the Vikings are really a huge fan of his. And, it's a pretty good land spot because, one, like you mentioned earlier, good weapons, good foundation, good play caller, and Kevin O'Connell. But then it also allows him to sit because they have Sam Darnold. So he can sit and learn for, multiple weeks and then come in if Darnold starts to struggle. So I have J.J. McCarthy landing with the Vikings.
I mean, yeah, that's what a lot of people have. I mean, I think in that situation, I don't know if they'd have to trade up to 5 because I think it's kind of known. It seems like the Giants aren't going to take a quarterback first round. That's kind of, obviously that could be wrong, but that's kind of now it's turned to like, hey, we're not going to draft one first round, but maybe later. So I'm a little iffy on that. If I know the Chargers would want to trade back, but that's a lot. I mean, like, you don't even know Like, you don't even think Giants. But I do have a trade myself, but it's not what you think. So I have the 3 quarterbacks, Marvin Harrison, gone, and that leaves the best overall prospect, Malik Neighbors. And I have the Falcons trading up 3 spots.
Wow.
trading
I'm shocked by this.
trading obviously 108 and then their second, the 43rd pick for 105 and the 103rd pick. So Chargers just moving back a little. And I have them taking Malik Neighbors to help with Kirk Cousins. So you have Kirk, London, Robinson, Neighbors, and then Pitts, and hopefully he shows up, becomes something. But yeah, that's a little like I was just thinking about. I was like, I think they'd want to snag someone, and Chargers, I think, just want to accumulate picks a little bit. So yeah, Neighbors to make the Falcons even that much more dangerous on offense.
I agree with your point about the Chargers wanting to accumulate picks, especially because Jim Harbaugh is very familiar with this draft class. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to try to recuperate as many picks as possible and let him, pick the players he knows very well. For Falcons, and we'll get the pick later, but I still don't see them. They already have pretty good skill position players. I know Pitts has kind of been a question mark throughout his first 3 years as a pro, but I think they have other needs on that roster that I think they should address before train up for receiver.
I know. I understand that. I have a gut feel that they're like one more time.
They've spent
They have. No, I get
three
it. I
top
get
10
it.
picks on skill position. Like, I don't see
And they
that
just
happening
signed
again.
Kirk, and I
Yeah,
you're just trusting a lot of Mooney, and
they
I
signed
think
Mooney too. I mean,
I know, but it's Darnell Mooney, and London
they
is
gave
a
him 13
one.
million.
I
No, Lund's
know,
a one, but you gave
but
13
he's
million to
not a.
Mooney.
I know, but London's also not a high end one. He's a good one, but he's not like he's not a top 10 receiver in this league.
No, no,
And so
no.
Neighbors could be your one, and I just see them snagging that opportunity in this mock draft. But I can move to the 6th pick.
Yep, I'm guessing other tricks. You seem pretty excited about this one.
No,
Pick.
but I don't think I've seen this mocked once, but I think it makes a lot of sense. The Giants, I think they need a weapon, and everyone's going receiver. And I think there's a gap between Neighbors and Odunze. I
It's
think there's a
understandable.
gap.
Like I think
And
you could say that Harrison and
I don't.
Neighbors are in their own tier, and then Odunze's in that set. Like, or do you have Marvin Harrison in his own tier, and then Neighbors in his own tier, and then
Yeah,
Odunze?
I think it's split. All three of their own tiers. But this Darren Waller, I was blanking on his name. Darren Waller stuff is a little weird. And you have one of the best tight end prospects ever sitting there at 6. And you can use some help, run blocking and maybe pass blocking. So why don't the Giants just go get Brock Bowers?
Makes sense. Best weapon on the board in your mock, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or I thought you were.
I mean, I just think it's that. I think I broke that down. I mean, I think it's simple. He's a stud.
Okay. Well, the best weapon remaining on my board is Malik Neighbors, and I think that'd be a really good fit with Giants. You need to help Daniel Jones out. Now you have Neighbors. Why am I blanking on the Jalen Hyatt? Like I think those two weapons. Yeah, Wendell. I think if you can give Daniel Jones another weapon, because without Saquon, I don't know where this offense goes. So I think for them, if you want to keep building around Daniel Jones, and like you said, they may take quarterback second round. There's a good amount of quarterbacks in this draft where you can take second, third round potentially. Like Spencer Rattler, someone like that. So I think you get a weapon, and I do believe they're going to take a quarterback in this draft. I think it's just going to be later on, and they're going to hedge their bet against Daniel Jones because I think they're going to move off of him after this year. So I think they end up taking Neighbors here and continue to build an offense that was pretty bad last year, especially with injuries. But Giants have not had a good offense, it seemed like, in a long time. So I think Malik Neighbors is the pick here. I'll move to pick 7. Another obvious pick for me. Tennessee, with the top receivers off the board, you don't need a quarterback. Offensive line is the main need for this team. And I have Joe Alt landing with the Tennessee Titans. And I think if you've already given Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins, who he's on the other side of 30, but then you sign Calvin Ridley. I think 2 solid weapons. So I think addressing the offensive line and getting Will Levis protection he needs is the move for the Titans here.
No, yeah, I like that. I mean, go get a lineman. That's probably what they need. They kind of got weapons. And okay, I can go mine.
Do you have Joe Alt as well?
No, I have another trade.
Okay, wow. You already have 3 trades in top 10. That's
No, yeah,
more than okay.
I think it's when you have all these quarterbacks, it's
Oh
just
yeah, things get wild. I mean,
yes, and I think it's
especially
gonna
all the
get
teams with
wild.
quarterbacks. But yeah,
And so I have Seattle trading up their first round pick and a future first next year
okay.
for pick 107. I have them taking McCarthy. I mean, they kind
Wow.
of
Okay.
you kind of have that Mike McDaniel to Harbaugh connection. And they have Geno Smith. I know they have Howell.
How's not
I
the
just
answer.
yeah, I know. I think so I think it's an interesting room. And I like them going and saying we like McCarthy. We think with our weapons he could do the same thing. Their line's been better in the past. Go get McCarthy. He sits like he's not playing. I think that's pretty
No.
clear. He's not playing first year like at all. And then
And I think the comments by like John Schneider and Mike McDonald this offseason have kind of hinted that the Seahawks may be interested in grabbing a quarterback in this draft. When they talk about Geno Smith, he's a starter for now.
mhm.
He's a starter until he's not. Like that kind of tells you that they're somewhat interested in. And I think they could potentially trade up as well in this draft. So I agree with the trade up. I just don't agree with the prospect that they take.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have McCarthy be my pick, but that's what I think will happen.
All right. Let's move on to pick 8. You can start us off with this selection.
So this is remember, I had the Chargers trade back here. Oh, I forgot to put on my little Google Doc. I went a little like on my Google Doc to where everything's like organized. So wait, let me just type in trade with Atlanta. Or not trade. Yes. And so they're at 8. I know Rome Odunze is still there, but I kind of just the best tackle is still there, Joe Alt, or the perceived best tackle. So I just have him getting Joe Alt. Harbaugh likes to run the ball. I think that's pretty simple. Go get Alt at 8 after trading back. Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised with Roma Dunze available that you would take. And I know Jim Harbaugh, they want to win the trenches, so I absolutely understand what your thought process is. But Roma Dunze, I thought with him being available, I thought that's where you're going to go when you were going to do this pick.
because whenever there's like 2 or 3 receivers at the top, one always falls a little. I think you saw that with like the CD Lamb, Ruggs, Judy year. That's just one that pops up in my head, and I feel like you always see that. So Dunze is a guy who I think falls a little.
All right, my 8th pick, I have the Falcons staying there, and I think the obvious need is pass rusher, and I think Dallas Turner is by far the best pass rusher in this draft. I think he separated himself even more during the combine with his workout numbers. And I think for Falcons, I mean, they have everything you want offensively, really good offensive line. Defensively, they have good secondary. They just need that pass rusher, and I think Dallas Turner fills that void for them.
Hmm.
9th pick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say that's a solid pick. They need some defense. I know I went receiver, but if they go defense, probably be Turner.
9th pick, Chicago Bears. And if Dallas Turner was on the board, I think that's the way they would go
Mm-hmm.
and potentially trade back. But I have them taking Romo Dunze, and I know we're on opposite sides of the spectrum here when it comes to this conversation. I know you are a proponent of the Bears not taking a receiver, but I think the Keenan Allen situation, the acquisition of Keenan Allen, is similar to the Texans getting Stephon Diggs. It's more of a 1-year thing, helps develop your quarterback, and I don't think Keenan Allen's going to be there next season. I don't believe they're going to sign to extension after this season. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's just a gut feel I have. And you have Roma Dunze start the season as your 3 and maybe, develop into your 2 for next year. But I think Roma Dunze, best prospect on the board, fits their need. I know the Bears have 4 picks in this draft and 2 in the top 9, so they could trade back. But I think their guy, and this is not based on any reporting or anything, but I think their guy in this draft outside of Caleb is Roma Dunze. I think that's their guy.
Yeah, I've said I'm not big of that. If they trade up for Marvin, that's one thing. It's Marvin.
I just don't think that draft cap. I mean, they could trade future picks, but I mean, they only have 4 draft picks in this draft.
I know, but it's a stacked receiver class. I mean, or maybe you can go for it next year. I don't think this is the year for it, and I don't think they will do it unless it's Marvin. So I have them at 9. I have another trade. I have them trading back 4 spots with the Raiders.
They're very trade happy.
The Raiders trade, yes, it's very trade happy. Raiders trade the 13th pick, second round pick, and a 6th round pick for the 9th pick, a 4th round pick, and a future 5th. And the Raiders go and take Michael Penix. Michael Penix has been getting a lot of hype. I've seen stuff where it's like the coaches like him more than scouts. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I like Penix. But a coach's likes more than scouts feels like a Raider pick. Why am
Yeah,
I blanking on his name? I
Antonio
feel like
Pierce.
Antonio Pierce, he'd go in there and he'd be like, Penix is my guy. We got some stuff on defense. We need a quarterback. Sign Minshew, but we know it's Minshew. And, there's New England's at 11 in this. Denver's at 12. Those can both be quarterback teams. So you kind of want to get ahead of the curve, move up. You don't lose a ton of stuff. Go get Michael Penix, your future quarterback.
Yeah, I was actually very close to having the Raiders trade into the top 10, but I just didn't. The Raiders are a weird team for me because I think they're kind of in no man's land in this draft because of where the quarterbacks are going to be selected. But I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that they'll roll out into the season with Aiden O'Connell and Garner Minshew as their quarterbacks.
Yeah, I just don't think so.
So yeah, I absolutely get the pick. I think they pick a quarterback later in the draft. You start 10th pick.
10th pick, I see. It's not even that big of a fall. It's not even that big of a fall. I have Jets taking Rome Odunze. They signed Mike Williams. I like Mike Williams, but he's very injury prone. It's on a 1-year deal. And you probably need a wide receiver 3. You have Lazard, who they're trying to get rid of, but haven't been able to. Probably need a young guy in there. You kind of sign. Their offensive line is so weird because they have a 5. And everyone's pretty solid, but they're all old and injury prone. So, O-line was a consideration. But I think here at 10, they just take Rome.
All right. I have a trade here. The Jets trading this pick to the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks take Michael Penix. So I think Seattle, they connect Michael Penix back with his offensive coordinator from college. I don't think they have to give up a lot. I mean, you probably have to give up your first and your second. Maybe not your second, because I don't think they're going to have to give up their future first next year. But I think this trade allows them to get a potential, their second round pick not back, but they don't have a second round pick because they traded it to Green Bay for Rodgers. So I think Jets, offensive line is something that I was really considering at this spot, but there's been reports that they're interested in trading back, and I think they have a lot of needs on their roster that they can still fill. So I think they trade his pick back, and Seattle gets Michael Penix, and I think Penix should early on be the starter for Seattle. Not week 1. I think Geno Smith will be the start to opening week, but Geno Smith I think is a prime candidate to lose his job early on this year.
I agree.
Pick 11. So this is where the Chargers are now because of the trade with the Vikings, and I have them taking Talise Fuaga of Oregon State. I think best tackle on the board, to play right tackle, and Justin Herbert's been kind of banged up the last couple of years, and Jim Harbaugh wants to win in the trenches, as I said earlier. So I think Talise Fuaga makes a lot of sense in this spot if they trade back.
Okay, so here was something interesting that I didn't do in my mock draft. I thought about having the Jets trade back with Denver for Denver to take Bo Nix. But in my head, I see Sean Payton taking Bo Nix if he lands at 12. But my 11th pick is the Patriots, and they've gathered more assets now to build around a quarterback. It's kind of wild to say, but 6 quarterbacks in my top 11. It's nuts. Bo Nix to New England. They have more stuff to build around them. Not sure if I love the pick. That's what I got.
So I made the mock draft last night, and I had it all written out. And then today I was like, so I originally had the Patriots trading with Minnesota, and Minnesota got Drake May, and then the Patriots at 11 took Brock Bowers. But I completely changed that. I changed that up. I don't know why I just didn't feel right. So that's why I didn't have. I understand. There's a small feeling. I think there's a chance that the Patriots trade back in this draft, and I think there's an opportunity that they don't even take a quarterback in this draft.
No, I thought about them not taking a quarterback.
They have 150. 160 million in cap next year. 140, or it's like 140 in cap.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't spent a lot of money this year. I think Dak Prescott could be a potential, or New England could be a potential landing spot for Dak
No,
Prescott, and they may just
that's
load this roster.
that's
Like I could
completely
definitely see that.
possible. I could see that as well. I when I had the trade back, I thought about that cap space and like they could like have Bo Nix play 1 year, and then they're gonna build a little more, as I'll have later, and then that second year they can explode with money. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how I see it. But both are very possible.
hmm
But my 12th pick now with Denver kind of being the loser of the quarterback sphere, I just have him taking Dallas Turner. The fact that he's available at 12 is nuts. The fact that he's
Yeah.
the first defensive player is nuts. I mean, I usually want to do this, but this draft is nuts. And this
Yeah.
is a way but Dallas Turner, they need some edge rushing. Great spot. I know that it's been talked about how they like Rattler, so maybe they take him later. I feel like Rattler's the guy who's like, oh, they'll take Rattler later, but maybe it's Joe Milton. Who knows? But yeah, Denver, Turner, 12.
I actually think Joe Milton goes to the Cowboys later in the draft. That's my kind of bold prediction I have in this draft. But my 12th pick, I have the Denver Broncos selecting Bo Nix. And Bo Nix is such a tricky prospect for me because I think this is a reach, but they have such a desperate need at quarterback that, and I think he's 24 years old. He's going to come in right away and understand the system. He's shown the ability to be able to process and be accurate with the football, which is all Sean Payton wants. He wants a quick processor, and I think Bo Nix fits that bill. But I think it's a reach. I don't know if he's necessarily a first round talent in this draft, but because there's so many QB teams, I think he's going to end up going first round, and I think the Denver Broncos snatch him up.
Yeah, there's so many QB needy teams. I feel like they're all going to evaluate a little differently. So every player will have one team who likes him.
Yep. Pick 13. So I was really considering like the Raiders trading up, but I just don't see the Raiders. They're not the type of organization that's really aggressive in these drafts, especially Antonio Pierce. I don't know what they're going to do in this draft. Like I have no idea how they're going to handle the quarterback situation, but I have them taking offensive tackle Alou Fashanu. And Fashanu, remember, he was a top 6-7 prospect if he entered last year's draft, but he elected to go back to college. So I think really good offensive lineman for the Raiders, and I think he'll probably play at right tackle, and Colton Miller will probably stay at left tackle, and they'll get a quarterback later in this draft.
Okay, so I'm on 14 with the Saints.
Well, no, you haven't given your 13th.
Oh, I'm dumb. My bad. I kind of had something in my mind. I can't do it now. But I have Chicago back here at 13. And, but they didn't go with receiver. They've added a little more draft pieces. And then Jared Verse is still available. So I have back-to-back edge rushers. Turner's kind of the one and Verse is kind of the two. I think that's kind of the overall thought. And so, yeah, and they can use another edge rusher outside of Sweat. I think that could be Verse really good. I mean, their defense could be pretty solid. I think that's the smartest way to build. I think that's what they'll do. And plus, they've shown a want to build on defense. So I think they're not going to spend the first 2 picks on offense. And then
they also have a defensive-minded head coach, and
yes,
who may be, telling the front office, let's go get a defensive player. We already got Caleb Williams, and we've already added Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. So, yeah, that's definitely a plausible pick.
Mm-hmm. And then, so my 12 through 15 are sort of the same style. My 14th pick, Saints, kind of a weird team to draft for, but you have the best corner, Kenyon Mitchell from Toledo, who's just risen up boards. And he's just sitting right there at 14. You're getting a player who's best at his position without having trade up at pick 14. Lattimore's getting a contract era where it's getting a little dicey. I think Mitchell could be the guy to eventually replace him and to play alongside him this year. Quinton Mitchell, Toledo.
All right. I have another offensive lineman off the board. I have the Saints taking J.C. Latham out of Alabama. I think offensive line is a dire need for them. There's uncertainty in their offensive line. There's a couple players that deal with injuries. The name is slipping me for some reason, but there's a player on the offensive line that may not even play this upcoming season because he's dealing with injuries. I don't know why I
Mm.
can't think of the name, but I think J.C. Latham really good fit for the Saints, and Saints they're a tricky team to project in this first round, but I think they
are.
I think they stay. I think they either go offensive line or defensive line. I just see them going offensive line here.
Their pick is just going to be like something where no one really talks about much.
Mhm.
I feel like that's always what happens with them.
15th pick. You mentioned this player a couple picks ago. I have the Colts taking Jared Verse. I think he slipped way too far in this draft, and I think really good value for the Colts. I was really considering Brock Bowers here because he's still on the board in my mock draft. But I think defensively they need to shore up that defense. I mean, they play so fast-paced offense that their defense kind of suffers at times because of that. So I think they get a pass rusher, and I think corner's also in need. But I think Jared Verse is clearly the best player on the board here.
So with corner, I have Colts taking cornerback Terrion Arnold from Bama. So Larry, my 12th and 13th pick are number 1 edge, number 2 edge, and my 14 and 15 are number 1 corner, number 2 corner. And I drafted former Wildcat, Terrion Arnold, or not Terrion Arnold, Juju Brents, and he has a lot of talent, and he played well in the time, but he didn't play a lot last year. I think his injury and something else, I'm not too sure. But he didn't play a ton, and they have Kenny Moore, who's in the slot, one of the best slot corners, nickelbacks in the league, and then Arnold could come in, and you sort of have a three-headed quarterback room, pretty young. Kenny Moore kind of leading it, and so I kind of like that. And then
I think that's a really solid pick. So we both went defense there.
Yeah, I think that's a thought that they're either going to go receiver or defense. And then with the 16th pick, remember, the Titans trade with Seattle here. And if they're able to go back from 7 to 16 and get Fashanu, that's excellent. Because I'll kind of consider the guy, but there's a real chance Fashanu is the best tackle in this draft. Like
I
a
agree.
very solid chance. And so they move back 9 spots, still get a great tackle, add a ton of picks. You know, if you're them and you add in my mock, they move back 9 spots for just a 2025 first. If you move that far back and you get another first, 9, and you get a player who could be the same value, could have got 7, I think that's great. So I have the Titans having a good day one here, grabbing Fashanu at 16.
So earlier I had the Jets trading with Seattle. So now the Jets have this pick at 16. And at 10, a lot of people are saying that they're going to get this player at 10. But I think he's offensive line, I think, is what they should do. But I think this player is the best player on the board. I just mentioned he's been slipping down my board. Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers is a pick here. And offensive line, I think they should heavily consider. But they've, Aaron Rodgers, their front office, they probably think they've done enough on the offensive line by adding, Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, 2 players that are older, 2 players that deal with injuries. And I think they add offensive linemen later in the draft because Brock Bowers is available. And I think you get another weapon. And as you mentioned earlier, Mike Williams injury prone. And outside Garrett Wilson, there's not really anybody that you trust. I mean, there's Breece Hall, but in the receiving room, outside Garrett Wilson, there's not anybody you really trust. So I think Brock Bowers is a pick here. And, I think he's clearly the best player on the board.
If you get Bowers at 16 at train back, it's the same thing what I just said with the Titans. I mean, that's great. That's a great first round.
17th pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think corner's a possibility here, but they just lost Calvin Ridley. You really only have Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. I think they go grab Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, physical receiver. I'm kind of worried with his ability to create separation, but Trevor Lawrence at times is really accurate, and I think they need that physical down the field receiver that can win jump balls. So Brian Thomas is my pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I like it. I really considered it. I was 50-50 on this pick because they signed Gabe Davis, and you have Zay Jones, and you have Christian Kirk. And I was like, okay, take receiver. I think they take receiver. And I kind of thought about it. It's like, Trevor Lawrence, you got to protect Trevor Lawrence. I have Talise Fuaga, Oregon State tackle. He could probably play guard if you need to, depending on what you like. I know they've had Walker Little, who's been fine. and I was really 50-50 on it. I'm still 50-50 on it, but I just see them going to get O-line, protecting Trevor Lawrence, because I think we've seen that Lawrence can spread the ball around really well. I think we've seen that that's kind of he's really good at that. It's like Stroud. When Lawrence is at his best, he's not targeting one guy. He's hitting Kirk, and then he's hitting Zay Jones, and then he's hitting Evan Ingram, and then ETN out of the backfield. So that's where I think he'll go with that. But my next pick, Bengals. This is if they trade T. Higgins or don't. I don't know what they're doing with T. Higgins.
If they trade him, do you think they get a first for him?
If you get a first, you probably give back like a fourth or something. I don't know. I don't think you get a straight up first. It's close. I'm not as high on T. Higgins as I think most are. I don't dislike him. I think he's a 2. But I have him taking Brian Thomas here. And if you keep Higgins for a year and then franchise him again, trade him, then you have Thomas step in as 2. And this year, he could be the 3. You lost Tyler Boyd. I know they drafted some guys who've had a little success in later rounds, but they haven't really popped. And so now you kind of reinvigorate that wide receiver trio, Brian Thomas, for this year. I know it kind of makes your receiver room a little like everyone's kind of the same.
But if T. Higgins gets traded, I mean, Brian Thomas could be here too then.
But bigger, stronger, faster guys, and not as much like, Jamar Chase is a great route runner. So, he's everything. So he's very similar to T. Higgins, but I think he can sort of build in for a year and then explode next year. So it's his name. And I think that's, as I said, trade Higgins, keep Higgins, Brian Thomas.
I think the Bengals, I was very close to having the Bengals trade up for Brock Bowers because he was slipping.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Joe Burrow's health the last few seasons, they have to make sure he's protected. So I think they get offensive lineman Troy Fatanu. He can play tackle. He can play guard.
That's a good pick.
There's always uncertainty on the offensive line. So the fact that he's so versatile and he can play multiple positions, if there's an injury or if there's poor play, he can shift positions. So I think Troy Fatanu, I think really versatile player, like I just said. And I think because Joe Burrow's dealt with so many injuries, my priority would just be protecting him. And I know they've invested so much draft capital and money into the offensive line and seem to always be shuffling around, seem to haven't figured out fully. But I think you have to keep plugging away at that because Joe Burrow's been injured each of the last 2 years. And, his rookie year, he suffered a season-ending injury. So Joe Burrow, as long as he's healthy, the Bengals will be good. But if he gets hurt again, there's going to be major question marks. And there's already question marks about his health going forward. But if he gets hurt again, it's like, where do we go? Is Joe Burrow, is he just going to be getting hurt every year? So Troy Fatanu is my pick here.
I like that. It's so tough. I also thought offensive line, but I had a gut feel about Brian Thomas, but that's a good pick.
Pick 19, Los Angeles Rams just lost Aaron Donald. I was actually very close to having Byron Murphy as a pick here, but they already have some defensive tackle depth in that defensive line. So I actually have them taking Latu out of UCLA. Best pass rusher on the board. Continue to bolster up that defensive line. And offensively, I don't think they need anything really. They could maybe go offensive line, but I think a pass rusher is something that they're missing on this defense.
I have the same exact pick. All the same reasons. Exact same reasons. And they made a lot. You'd think O-line, but they made a lot of offensive linemen signings. So their O-line's kind of set. Their weapons, you got Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, Puka. You're good.
Kyron
you got
Williams.
Your running back, Kyron Williams. You signed Higbee to an extension. So you got Stafford. So maybe you draft a quarter. Maybe if someone falls, they're like, oh, let's go get a Penix here. But
I also think I know Rams already have a lot of picks in this draft, but I think they could also trade back from the spot. I think they're trade back.
I just think Latu is a great value, and I had the same pick. We haven't agreed on a pick since Caleb Williams.
We have not, no. Well,
wait,
Marvin Harrison.
Okay, yeah, since Marvin. Okay, the 2 of the best prospects ever. But with my 20th pick, okay, this is my spicy one. I've had some spicy trades. This is the spicy trade. I don't see Brandon Ayuk staying with the Niners. It's too weird. Pittsburgh needs a receiver. They traded Deontay Johnson to Carolina. I got Brandon Ayuk for the 20th pick in the 2025 second from Pittsburgh. So I think they go all, and they're really good at drafting receiver, but I think with how they have the Wilson and Fields. I think they just go get Ayuk. He's great. Ayuk's fantastic. Like if you told me Ayuk could have the same rise that Diggs did when he went to Buffalo, but obviously he doesn't have Josh Allen.
Well, he doesn't have Josh Allen, so
but it'd be not as high because of that, but it could be similar if Russell Wilson really gets it going. So I have that. So Pittsburgh's trade away the 20th pick to the Niners. And instead of the Niners waiting to replace him, I just see the right here, Adonai Mitchell, receiver with some nice size, athleticism, route running. Niners go get Adonai Mitchell, reset their wide receiver room. They're paying Debo a lot, but now you get a receiver on a rookie scale like you just had Ayuk. Reset that. Keep Brock Purdy having weapons because you may have to get rid of someone here soon with how well they're paying everyone. Go get a rookie receiver. First round.
I actually really like that move, and I think Ayuk's one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated receiver in this league. Like I don't think he gets talked about enough. I think like Deebo Samuel is always one gain, spotlight and all that. But I think if you look at what you want a receiver, I actually think Ayuk's a better receiver than Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo Samuel is a better football player because he can run the ball, he can catch, he can break tackles. But I think as a receiver, I'd rather have Ayuk than Deebo. So I think Steelers getting that is a really good move. I saw the Steelers staying here, and I have them taking offensive tackle. Amarius Mims will play right tackle, and especially if Russell Wilson's in there, you got to protect him. He's not that mobile anymore. And I mean, to be honest, with Steelers, I don't know how long Russell Wilson's going to be the starter there. I don't think he's going to be started the full season. Like I just don't see it happening. But I think they need to get the offensive line right, and I think the receiver depth in this draft is so good. I think they'll probably take one second round when one's available. With my 21st pick, I have the Miami Dolphins here. This is another one I think is pretty obvious. I have them taking Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon, interior offensive lineman to play center. Probably the best center in the draft. And I think when you have two last year he stayed healthy the whole year, and I think that's an outlier. I mean, he's been hurt throughout his entire career, collegiate and pro. And I don't know if they end up paying to. I think they could take a quarterback in this draft as well, but I think offensive line is the way they go in the first round.
I was very close because they lost Hunt. I was very close on Jackson Power Johnson or another guard. So I like it. But I have Byron Murphy here. You lost your defensive tackle to the Raiders. You're going to need someone to replace Christian Wilkins. I mean, you just need someone there. That's a huge loss. I know they have some nice front seven stuff, but no stars. But Byron Murphy, defense tackle from Texas, I think he could be a great fit there. They have a lot of offensive stuff, so I think they take defense here, kind of figure it out. But offense line, so it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Who do you have at 22?
22, Philadelphia. You need corners. And so it's basically which corner am I taking here? The top two are gone, and those two are in their own tier. And so I have them taking Nate Wiggins, probably safer side. Kool-Aid is probably the more higher potential. And then Cooper Jean, I've seen people have him at safety. And so there could be confusion with that. And so I just think at this point they take a corner, Nate Wiggins, help up that defensive back end, which was brutal last year.
Yeah, this is actually where I have my first corner coming off the board, which is when I was writing this up, I didn't realize this was I'm like, I do not have a defensive back.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
So I have Quinton Mitchell.
That's nuts.
Landing with the Eagles here, and I think he is the best corner in this draft, in my opinion. And I think we're both on the same wavelength of they need to address the secondary. And I think Eagles, I think you can pencil in taking a corner with their first round pick, and maybe they either trade up or trade down. But I think regardless, their first round pick is going to be in the secondary.
That's nuts. That's your first corner. That's nuts.
So 23rd pick. This belongs to the Los Angeles Chargers from the Minnesota trade. And I haven't taken wide receiver at Adonai Mitchell here, which him and Quinn Johnson are kind of the same type of receiver, but I was close to having him taking Byron Murphy here as well, because I believe Jim Harbaugh wants to win on both sides of the offensive line and defensive line. But I think Adonai Mitchell, best receiver on the board remaining, and I think him with Justin Herbert, Quinn Johnston, who still there's major question marks there. But I think with him and Justin Herbert would be a great fit for the Chargers.
I like that. I think, yeah, because you had them. They took Alt, right?
No, they took Fuaga.
Oh, they took Fuaga. Okay, I'm sorry. I like that. I just had something that I am slightly changing. I'm not changing. It's with my 20. Yeah, I just had something I was slightly changing. I saw it. It was a trade that was honestly worthless, and I'll say it after. But so 23rd pick, New England. I have New England here. I have, and I had them take Bo Nix, and I have 5 receivers have gone so far, and Brock Bowers. So I just have him taking off its tackle. I think Troy Fatanu has fallen. He's fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think at that point, they're just going to take him. I mean, he's very athletic offensive lineman. You can put guard or tackle. That's just a great spot. Get Bo Nix some help. Weapons will have to be solved, and New England has not solved the weapons in a long time. But it's a deep wide receiver class, so they can wait further and go get that. So I think they go get tackle here.
That was actually my initial, not Fuaga, but your final mock draft, 2.0 mock draft, is similar to my draft. I had Pages taking, well, not you didn't have them taking Brock Bowers, but I had Brock Bowers in the offensive lineman. So very similar. Oh, no, you're 24th now.
Yeah. Okay. I had a trade between Dallas and Buffalo. I took it out. Okay. I have them taking the same players that they were already taking. So sorry, no change. And I kind of looked at the trade. I'm like, this is kind of dumb at this point. If you're looking at it, Dallas wouldn't trade back here in this situation because they have them taking this player. And the player I have them drafting is from the state of Texas, Xavier Worthy, speedster. I know you're not a big Worthy fan. I'm not huge, but I'm still open on Xavier Worthy.
Do you think the 40 time is why he's a first-round pick? Like, do you think
he was already kind of considered it, but I think
I think
it helps. He's fastest receiver in this draft per 40. Fastest receiver. Dallas could use another receiver. They have Cooks, who's kind of a speedster himself. He's older, so now he's more of a savvy guy. And you're trying to get rid of Gallup. I think he's still on the roster. So this way you get Xavier Worthy. I think it's kind of your one last shot with Dak. So you give him another receiver who could be a game changer. In the past, they've had some other type of fast guys who they've messed around with and done some stuff like reverses and stuff like that. And he can be in that role, but be more of a true receiver. So I'm not the biggest Xavier Worthy guy, but if you're a go-to a spot, Dallas, I think, is a great landing spot for him because CD is a one and there's no questions. And Cooks is a vet. And so those could be like they switching off 2 and 3 depending on the game. Gallup is still technically there. See what happens with that. So if Worthy goes anywhere, this is a great spot.
Cowboys, I think receiver could make sense there. I just don't think. I mean, if CeeDee Lamb, I think they do need it too. But I don't think they're going to spend a first-round pick on one. I actually have them taking offensive tackle Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. I think stays like I think with the Cowboys, you lose Tyron Smith. And the offensive line, I mean, you need to get somebody on the left side. I think receiver, I think they address later in the draft, probably second round. But I think Tyler Guyton, for whatever reason, this name when I look at it, it makes like fitting with the team. It just sounds like a Dallas Cowboy player. So
that's funny.
Like, yeah,
I get it.
Tyler Guyton's my pick here.
I get it. I don't dislike that. I think it's a good pick. I just think in this year, I think this is just my opinion. They always draft offense or defensive line first round, except like CD, but I feel like it's always that. And with how they're giving Dak, like they're kind of saying, hey, we're not re-signing you unless like you do something great this year. They're going to do something a little different. That's why I go with Xavier Worthy.
And I also think if Adonai Mitchell was here, I think they'd take Adonai Mitchell, no brainer. But I think there's not really a receiver on the board that I think moves the needle that much for them. So I think they should address the offensive line like they usually do, and they get a receiver second round. With my 25th pick, Green Bay Packers, and I was really considering a trade back here, but there was just not. I don't see a lot of trade opportunities. like Buffalo, I think could trade up. I think at the same time, I think they're just going to stay where they are. I have the Packers taking cornerback Nate Wiggins. There's been questions about Jair Alexander's future in Green Bay. He'll be there this upcoming season, but
They
maybe he
traded
won't be
away
there.
Rajul Douglas to Buffalo.
Yeah, 20. What the corner that they draft out of Georgia?
No, he's always Stokes. Eric
He's
Stokes.
yeah, Eric Stokes. He's always banged up. Hasn't
He's
really
shown potential, but
yeah, but he hasn't developed the player that they thought he was going to be at this point. So I have Nate Wiggins here, and I think Green Bay offensively, they have a lot of young talent there. I think defensively is where and offensive line I think is also a chance to be selected here, but I think to take Nate Wiggins who, because the corner slipping, I think really good value here.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned offensive line, and I kind of had Batanu at 23, which is kind of a slide. Fashanu at 16, which kind of slides. So I have like a lot of linemen in this draft, but I just think they kind of fall back a little. And so at 25, J.C. Latham's still there. They lost Bakhtiari. The Packers are fantastic at drafting offensive line. And I just think Latham's great. And what you said, but I do like corner. And the 26th pick, I'll move straight into that. I was debating to go Latham or this player, and I have Tampa Bay going Graham Barton. And I think you've committed to Baker here for a few years, and you got Mike Evans back on a pretty solid deal. In my opinion, I think it's a great deal. And so I think you got to protect him. Your offensive line in the middle has sort of decayed. Graham Barton, top guard in this draft out of Duke. I just think that's a real solid pick. Keep Baker Mayfield protected and try to expand on what he was able to do this year.
I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking edge rusher Chop Robinson. Offensive line was something else I was considering here, but like Graham Barnes still available on my board, but I just feel like defensive line, it's kind of getting up there in age. Defense is getting up there in age.
Both their interiors are getting up in age.
Yeah, so I felt more comfortable with Tampa taking Chop Robinson. I think that's where they end up going in this pick. 27th pick. Another, I think it's a no-brainer pick as well for Arizona. They get defensive tackle Byron Murphy out of Texas. Arizona's always been pretty weak on the defensive side of the ball, especially defensive line. So I think gain this, you have San Francisco twice a year. They run the ball a lot. Seattle likes to run the ball. Rams like to run the ball. It's good to get an interior pass rusher that can, stop the run and also provide a pass rush. So I have Byron Murphy going to the Arizona Cardinals.
I like that pick. I think they need some defensive help after we each have them taking Marvin. So we were close on agreeing exactly on Arizona picks. Not exactly. I do have them defensive line, more of an edge. I'm going to get Chop Robinson. They can use a nice pass rusher. Robinson was considered right up there with Verse and Turner and Latu. Those four were kind of all together, but he kind of got hurt. He got hurt this year. Didn't get hurt in the Michigan game.
I believe so.
I believe he did.
I believe he did.
And so I have him there. I think that's good value. I really like – there's a lot of defensive value in this mock draft of mine because of all the offense going so high up. And so I think
you had the first 9 picks being offense, right? Or first 10?
First 11.
First 11, yeah.
You had your corners not drafted until flipping Philly. That's nuts. So
yeah.
That's wild. If that were to happen,
I think the quarterback position is so
and receiver
elevated.
And offensive tackle
exactly. Yeah. And so everybody values those positions more, and I think everybody's going to go crazy for those positions. So, and I don't have that many trades in this mock draft, which is something I kind of regret now because there's always more trades than you think are going to happen. Like I only have 2 trades this mock draft, but there's only going to be more than that in the first round, especially with all these quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So that's something I do wish I addressed more. But yeah, I agree with all these offensive talented players. Defense is going to slip, I think, in this first round. What is your 28th pick?
Buffalo, as I said, I literally had them train up at Dallas and taking this exact same player I'm about to have them take, but I just said the trade's kind of worthless. Wide receiver Troy Franklin out of Oregon. He's a tall, lanky speedster. He hasn't ran as much of a route tree as most, but people believe he still can. You lost Gabe Davis. You just lost Diggs. Shakir is nice, and Curtis Samuel is nice, and they're nice. But you need some size. And I was thinking Keon Coleman. And honestly, I was 50-50 on him and Coleman. And I think my overall, just like, I think I'm not a Coleman guy, and I kind of like Franklin. They kind of pushed me to take Franklin here, but it could easily be Coleman. I'm just not big on him, so because he just didn't produce as much. So Troy Franklin here gets Josh Allen, a deep ball guy. If he can develop right away, I mean, if you're the number one receiver for Josh Allen, you can go nuts. It's the same way with the
Yeah.
Chiefs. How Rashee Rice, it took him a while, but then at the end, Rashee Rice was just going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that this could be very similar. And they're kind of similar players. Rice more of a better route runner, not as tall, but not as fast. But Rice more of a route runner. I think I missaid that. More than Franklin, but not as fast, not as tall. But yeah, they're going to take a receiver here after taking Trainway Diggs. I'd be shocked if they don't.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say you're 50-50. I'll be on the other side of that 50-50. I have Keon Coleman here going to the Buffalo
We almost
Bills.
agreed on another pick.
Yep. I think, Keon Coleman's a player I think he's boom or bust. But I think for Buffalo, I think they want a receiver that, can catch contested passes and create some separation. I think Keon Coleman's super athletic. I think he has the potential to be really good. I just don't know if it's going to be fulfilled. But I think Keon Coleman to the Bills makes a lot of sense.
No, yeah, he's huge. I could see it. Not a Coleman guy, but if you were to go to Buffalo, again, it's like how I think Worthy's a great fit with Dallas. Coleman would be a good fit with Buffalo.
And Xavier Worthy, I mean, you just said Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, both smaller receivers. That's why I didn't even think about Worthy here.
Yeah, I mean, same. You already have two smaller
Too small.
receivers. Josh Allen's going to want a big guy.
Pick 29, and this just
You
feels
do.
like a
Sorry
Detroit.
I just thought they do have two tight ends they throw to who are bigger.
Yeah, they'll run a lot.
But you
of
probably
12
still want
personnel.
the big guy. You probably still want a big receiver.
They'll run a lot of 12 personnel this year, I believe.
Mhm.
But I think they draft two receivers in this draft. I don't think they leave this draft with only one. I don't think they afford to leave the draft with only one. 29th
Maybe.
pick. This feels like a Detroit line pick. Cooper DeJean could play safety.
There we go.
I think they'll move him around. Maybe play him in the slot a little bit. I don't think he'll play outside corner, but him with Brian Branch as your two safeties, I think would be a really good pairing. And this just feels like a Detroit Lions pick to me. And I think pass rusher is also something they can address. And I think I was so close to taking a pass rusher here, but I think Cooper DeJean just feels like a Detroit Lion pick.
I have the same pick, even though I think he'll be used still more as a corner than as a safety. But everything you said, it just feels like a Lions pick. That's just,
Yeah,
I feel like I see. That's one of those I feel like I see all the time. I agree with it. And
who
then
do you have pick 30?
So Baltimore, did you see how Harbaugh kind of said he'd let Lamar chime in on the O lineman that they draft, which is interesting. But I didn't let that affect my pick because I have no idea what Lamar is going to say. But I have Tyler Guyton. He's kind of fallen.
Yeah.
They need a tackle. Just need linemen. I think he could be great for them. Anyone in Baltimore, and they're great at drafting. So whoever they pick will probably be the right pick. But I have Guyton here. And I do like what you said, where you said he sounds like a cowboy, which I respected. I respected that because sometimes that's just what happens. They just sound like a player and then they go there.
Baltimore, each and every draft, they always find gems, players that fall to them, and that's the case again in this mock draft of mine. I have Kool-Aid McKinstry landing with the Ravens. I think.
Okay.
He slips this far. I think you're in the AFC. Marlon Humphrey's getting up there in age. I don't think he's the same player. He lost Geno. Why am I forgetting names today? Geno Stone. Yeah, thank you. Geno Stone to the Bengals. I think secondary, especially because I just said AFC, you playing against all these star quarterbacks. Kool-Aid McKinstry seems like a really good value pick right here, and I think clearly the best defensive back left on the board.
That's an interesting pick. I think the go line. I feel pretty confident to go line, but if they don't, McKinstry, he was kind of like a top 10 pick, and then he got hurt. Didn't have the year I think people thought he would, but 30 to Baltimore. Remember they got Kyle Hamilton. I think Kyle Hamilton had like a bad debut or something, and then he was just.
No, I think his rookie year he was kind of hit or miss.
And now he's like the best safety in football.
31st pick, second to last pick of the first round, San Francisco 49ers. It's pretty easy for me. Graham Barton's still available. They need offensive linemen. They don't really value offensive line. Kyle Shanahan doesn't really value offensive line, but you need Trent Williams gain up there in age, gain old. I don't know how many more years he has left of being this good of a left tackle. And they need offensive line. I think everything else on their team is pretty much filled up. I think they don't really have much holds on this roster. Maybe another secondary player, but Graham Barton falling this far, I think for the 49ers is a really good fit.
I think that's a good pick because I have them taking Mitchell, but they still have this pick. And
That's
here
right, yeah.
I have a lineman, but I have Jordan Morgan. And I forgot who it was on Twitter, but they're saying how Jordan Morgan would be a perfect fit with like the zone run. And then they're like, and someone was like, that's Niners. And I just looked at that. I was watching a little bit of the film. I was like, that's not like, I mean, it's just on Twitter. But I was like, yep, that's good. And it's like, you know what? Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, I think he's more athletic offensive lineman, help with the run blocking. I think that's good for the Niners. I hope, it's kind of like, as Chiefs fans, the Niners are the biggest threat in the whole NFL. And so I'm saying, like, hopefully they take a lineman finally, but, like, I don't want them to. But, you know what? They just take the dang lineman. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Take
I mean, yeah, they need to. I mean, the offensive line's always been a major weakness of theirs. And Brock Purdy's not – he's been very impressive, but he's a smaller quarterback still. So you still need to protect him. And I know they value the run scheme a lot. So they probably value more of the interior offensive linemen, but even those offensive linemen aren't like outside Trent Williams' offensive line is not that great at all, especially from center to right tackle is just not what you need. So we both agree on offensive linemen there, offensive tackles. Final pick of our mock draft 2.0. Who do you have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting at the spot, or maybe they trade it out?
I do not have them trade out. I feel like this is another chalkish one. With the Rashee Rice stuff, I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to happen suspension-wise. Who knows? I don't know. But I have Lad McConkey from Georgia. I mean, when Brock Bowers was hurt, he was great. Nice route runner. Pretty dang fast. I think he ran – did he run in the 4.3s, like high 4.3s or low 4.4s?
I think it's like high 4.3s. So like 4.39 or something like that.
Yeah, but I really like him. I think he's better than Troy Franklin. But I have Troy Franklin going higher.
He ran a 4.39.
Yeah. So I think that's a good pick for Chiefs. Add speed, route running, good overall player. You don't know what's happening with Rice. You have Kelsey's getting older. I was gonna go tackle like a month or two ago, but with the Rice stuff, I just see him going receiver.
Yeah, I think offense tackle was definitely a viable option for the Chiefs, but with the Rashee Rice stuff, I think he's gonna end up being suspended. I'm gonna say like 4 to 6 games. That's just my gut feel. I also have Lad McConkey here. My dream receiver to the Chiefs lane is Adonai Mitchell, but I think Lad McConkey, has shown the ability he can beat because a lot of defenses now are pivoting to primarily playing zone defense, which is a reason why like Marquise Brown isn't that great against zone. If you looked at the metrics over the last couple of years, he's just not that great against zone. And I think Lad McConkey, I think with him and Kelsey, I think both of them are zone beaters. I really like Lad McConkey. I think route running is really good. He can find spots in the secondary. I'm actually a huge fan of McConkey. Dream for me is Adonai Mitchell, but I just don't think that's how the board's going to fall.
Yeah, Adonai Mitchell would be great, but yeah, I don't see him falling there. His stock has risen higher as the off season's continued.
Especially running like a 4.35 40. That's going to help. So that is both of our mock drafts. I was pretty surprised by how many trades you had, especially I think you had 3 trades in top 10, something like that. I was quite shocked by
1,
those.
2, 3. Yep, 4.
You had 4. You had more trades in top 10 than I had in my entire mock draft.
Yeah, and I had 5 trades total. I had 6, but then I turned it to 5.
Yeah. So yeah, it's our second mock draft. I don't know if we'll do another mock draft before the time of the draft because the draft is 15 days away, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Maybe if something nuts happens and it gets all wonky.
But next week and I'll probably check in with Luke on this. But I think next week we're gonna do some NBA playoff stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Regular season ends 14th, play-ins on the 16th. So we will probably do an episode where we discuss our thoughts on the current playoff picture. When does the play-in starts the 16th? Is it how long is it 16th through? I mean, is it only like a couple days?
I feel like it's to the 18th because
okay. I believe it's 16th on Tuesday. Yeah, so
it could be to the 19th. But
yeah, so next week we'll probably do NBA playoffs, kind of give our first round predictions and all that because most of seeds 1 through 6 are all
16th through 19th.
Okay, so all 1 through 6 seeds in both conferences are all hashed out. It's just the 7 through 8.
No, it's not.
No, I'm saying at that point.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant right now. I was like, whoa.
No. I'm saying at that point when we record, it will be. We'll know who 1 through 6 is, and then we'll try to find out who 7 and 8 are. So
it is interesting because the West 1 through 5. I mean, we basically know 1 through 3 is the 3 teams, and 4 and 5. I mean, we basically know Clippers. Unless something weird happens, it's going to be Clippers Dallas, which is fun.
Seems like there's always a playoff matchup every year.
The 6 through 11 or 6 through 10 in the West is kind of all up for grabs. Warriors would still have to do a lot. And then the East, I mean, Celtics have been the one for ages, but it's like Milwaukee's the 2, and they're 4 games ahead of the 8, 3.5 ahead of Philly at 7, 2.5 again over.
They play Orlando tonight.
Yeah, that's
probably
huge.
Without Giannis, and that's a huge game.
And then they play OKC, and then they play Orlando again. They could be.
Is it better for?
Have they clinched? They've clinched the playoffs, so they can't fall to the play-in.
No. But is it better for the Bucks to fall out of that 2 seed? I don't know if they want to play Philly
or Miami. Miami's kind of. I mean, I'd much rather if you get to play Cleveland. Cleveland's falling off. I want to play Cleveland.
Mm.
And then Indiana kind of always had their number, but that's pre-Siakam, and Tyrese Halliburton's kind of been playing injured, so he hasn't been the same. I feel like the Knicks, you'd be like, if you face the Knicks, even though that's an unlikely matchup, be like, we'll take it.
I'm pretty comfortable with the Bucks over the Knicks. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, I feel like they'd be fine there. Orlando is not good offensively at the end. I feel like you're going to beat. Yeah, I like New York, Orlando, Cleveland, Indiana. I'd still feel confident Milwaukee would win the series. Philly and Miami, you just don't want to mess with Miami. Miami's stupid good at stupid times.
They always show up in the playoffs.
The East is like, the East can end all over the place. I mean, there's a chance though Philly climbs back into the top 6.
Yeah.
I mean, they face Orlando and Brooklyn. Orlando has quite this. Orlando plays Milwaukee, Philly, Milwaukee, so they determine a ton of stuff. That'll be fun. I'm excited. Yeah. I love the playoffs. I love the NBA playoffs. They're so fun.
Mm-hmm. So that's just a little bit of a preview of what we will be talking about next week. As I said, 1 through 6 will probably be finalized in both conferences by the time we record. But until then, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us on Spotify, and we're always open. Like, we may do, like, if there's any, like, questions or, like, mailbag stuff that you guys want to do, we're always open to that too. But, yeah, until then, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Spotify, and make sure to like the video.
Peace.